Hey Creepers, we have a quick, exciting announcement. We just launched a Patreon. Do you guys feel like you need even more Yardley, Moni, and myself in your life when our weekly episodes end? Well then, partners, our Patreon is definitely the answer. We have 4 tiers with tons of options for all the movie reviews, not just the ones that we choose for the shows. Personal videos of ghost hunts and adventures, Moni's haunted library, and for the big ballers on tier 4, you will get all of that plus a drunk horror story every week. That's right, we're ruining our liver special just for you. So come on, y'all, join a creepy side. Come find us at patreon.com/creepinitreal. That's CREEPIN, it real. Welcome to the Creepin' It Real show, your one-stop shop for weird news, spooky, otherworldly, and paranormal shenanigans. We'll take a dive into what's going on in creepy pop culture. You can follow us on Twitter at creepin_it and like us on Facebook at The Creepin' It Real Show. Do you have a paranormal story you'd like to share with us? You can email us at creepinitrealshow@gmail.com. Welcome to Creepin' It Real, y'all. This week I'm super excited about our show theme. A little hint is death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king. That's right, we're going to talk about Egyptian curses. So strap in. Hopefully this will be fun. It's October. We got to get a little funky, so I'm bringing it. Moni, how are you doing this evening?
Well, okay, except for once again, we mispronounced Rocktober. Come on now, this is the best month of the year. Just in yesterday from New York City Comic-Con. It was good to me. It was a lot of fun to hang out in the city for 4 full days with no family or anything like that, a hotel room by myself. It was quite a decadent, even though I was working around the clock, it was quite a fun change of pace, but I am so happy to be back to wide open spaces. I've got a couple of exclusives to tease here on this show, horror related for us. But I wanted to see how Mr. Yardley's doing too.
Hey, I'm doing good. It's great to hear from everybody in the few days that we haven't done a show. Everything's been good. I look forward to the topic and also look forward to diving into some of this weird news. We've got a few things coming up with some stars from It, some new projects coming up. So I look forward to letting the creepers know about it.
Awesome. All right. Well, Yardley, or Moni, one of you. Moni, let's start with Moni. So what's your teasers? What's your stuff? I want to hear about it.
So as we do with many of our shows, we have to talk about penises. Mm-hmm. I want to preface this with, in no way is the violation part of this funny, especially this week. However, this article is just, it's stuck with me. I actually had it for last week to do, and we didn't get a chance to get to it, but it's so messed up. And also it is from the Scottish Sun, where we have read a couple of articles from before, and it's written in a very humorous way. So I hope you enjoy. Ruined my life. Sex with fake penis fiend was so painful, I would take day off work, says Scott's mum, who was duped by Sterling perv Carlos de la Cruz. That's the whole title of that article. Yeah. So long story short is this mum, as they call them in Scotland, was duped into sex with a trans lover who used a fake penis, and she told how she would ensure that she had the next day off of work in advance because romps with fiend, like, it's just the way they phrase things. It's like such a terrible thing, but romps with fiend left her in agony. So basically, she is a single mom, and she's dating someone that she has fallen in love with, doesn't know that he's actually transitioning transgender, and they even have a picture of him smiling here. The fiend used a fake willy. Like,
wow.
She can't make this stuff
I'm
up.
looking at the pictures.
Yes. He did go to jail, so that's another thing, is I'm not making fun of his playing on her, because definitely he got justice for it, which I think is another thing we needed to hear this week. But definitely he would always do it in the dark with her, because he said that he was burned badly by his mother as a child, But in reality, he was using a blood and flesh prosthetic, which I didn't even know they make those.
What? What does that mean?
So it's got to be a dildo, but it's actually with like flesh and blood. It must be warm. It must feel very
Ew.
real. Yeah. Yeah. So lifted the lid on their shocking 10-month relationship. She proved that he had had an operation to have his boobs removed, but tricked her into believing it was surgery for his burn scars. I mean, this guy, girl, person was all over the map.
Well, I mean, he looks like, okay, he looks like a
dude.
guy. He does look like a guy. I mean, no, hey, I'm all for people that feel like they need to be something else, but don't
Oh, yeah.
lie. Yeah, don't lie and fuck with people. That's messed up.
Well, how do you go 10 months without
Right?
having a clue? That's the only thing that's kind of crazy to me, because even if you're doing it in the dark, your eyes tend to adjust. I just don't know how that's possible.
That's
Like, she
partially
not
how it
touching
gets
it?
more weird and funny, kind of, is because every time that they do it, they go pitch dark and they pretty much do it from the back. But she kind of noticed that he was holding something all of the time. It felt like sandpaper. I mean, I don't know. I feel like there were clues. He was holding it, but I
Sorry.
thought that
Why
was
would
because of
she
the.
turn the light on and
I
see
don't.
what the fuck's going on? Anyway, go ahead. Sorry,
Oh,
I'm just
Not
laughing.
even, it's painful, but you're not grabbing for anything.
No.
Like,
And why
it
would
just doesn't
you?
make any
Why
sense.
would you start, if it was that bad, would you tell your work, like, I can't come in tomorrow because you were going to have sex that night? Like, how much planning I can't even.
Okay, and let me ask you a question. Both of you. Okay.
Yeah.
10 months with somebody and you never did nothing else?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. So you
And
only had sex from behind. You didn't go down on him. You didn't.
Yeah. And
Nothing?
that's a little bit of my point, too, is like,
Okay.
her whole story is really. She said that she tried to make it more comfortable. I doubt that they tried that hard because he knew what he was doing. But it wasn't getting any easier. I would bleed really heavily afterwards. Jesus, like why? I had to go to a nurse with severe friction burns. Wouldn't the nurse be like, this doesn't seem like something that would happen with a flesh and blood penis? Like, I don't
How would you just go along with that?
I don't
Are
know.
you that? I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, she is a victim, clearly.
Yeah.
But are you that desperate that if sex is that painful, you gotta know that's not, something ain't right there. Like,
Yeah.
I don't, maybe that she just wasn't very informed about sex. I don't know, but that's just
She has a
bizarre.
child. Like she's obviously had
Oh,
sex
shit.
one other
Okay.
time.
Well, clearly.
That's part of the funny of the title is it's like mom is sleeping with perv. I'm like, what? And so he had a mastectomy during their relationship. But I found out later he'd been wearing restrictive vests under his shirt the whole time. Like he went to Birmingham for the operation, and when I saw him 5 days later, I even saw the scars, but a mastectomy obviously didn't enter my mind.
Wow.
She didn't find out that what he was doing until an ex-girlfriend came out of the woodwork and basically had him arrested, and she still to that moment didn't believe what was happening until the cops strip searched him in front of her and she realized he had no penis.
Oh my God. In front of her?
Apparently.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
kind of messed up too. Yikes.
She said everything else was great in our relationship, and I just ended up thinking maybe you can't have it all. So,
Yeah.
there you go.
Apparently not.
Yeah,
Wow.
no, or any of it.
That's sad and warped and fucked up and confusing all at the same time.
this is one of those things that you fight like hell to keep from being in the sun.
Yeah,
Right?
and she's just talking all about it. He said the ex-girlfriend tracked her down on Facebook, messaged her. She phoned me straight away and asked, "Can you 100% say that what he was using was attached?" And then it hit me that of course it wasn't. He was holding it. So there you go.
Really? It took that? Okay.
I know.
Wow.
Light
Well, I'm
bulbs.
so glad you forced this story on us after a week of being, because
Not
it's
joking about
very
forcing things
bizarre.
on.
Exactly. You forced the story of this forcing
At
trans
least I'm not
person.
holding a blood and flesh prosthetic dick while I'm
That
forcing it
feels
on you
like
guys.
sandpaper, apparently. How do
It
you?
reminds me of the 40-year-old virgin. Her boobs are like bags of sand. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
that's not what that's supposed to be like.
How do you be like? Well, that I mean, this prosthetic thing looks nice. Ooh, it feels like sandpaper. Done deal.
I'm
The
in.
women are
Yeah.
gonna love this.
Literally
Wow.
in. Yeah.
All right, Yardley. What do you? How are you following with
Follow
this?
that act. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just doing an update of some of our favorite actresses' activity. So, breakout star Sophia Lillis, who played Beverly Marsh, she's
Love
a
her.
star in a fairy tale thriller, Gretel and Hansel. The story is described as being set a long time ago in a distant fairy tale countryside and focuses on a young girl who leads her little brother into a dark wood in desperate search of food and work, only to stumble upon a nexus of terrifying evil. Now, let me ask both of you, this concept of taking, certain fairy tales, which in themselves, I think we kind of touched on this before, are kind of dark to begin with. But I think that they're probably going to try to take this, the original story, I guess, it was Hansel and Gretel. So they're trying to take this, kick it up a notch, and make it scary. Now, there's not a release date, and and the article didn't really have much details on, what the production schedule was, but I like Sophia Lillis and and depending, like I have to see a trailer. I don't want to step out on faith with my gut and say that this is good because my gut is probably telling me it's probably not gonna be. But if I see a trailer and it looks pretty decent, I think I might give it a shot. What do y'all think?
I would watch it. I love her, and it's got some good pedigree. It says that the producers include someone from Sinister, which was a movie that I loved. And just side note, she's looks like Lillis is going to be Nancy Drew in a new Nancy Drew revamp. So that's kind of cute and exciting for non-horror as well.
Yeah, I'm interested in it. A, I like the story, and B, I think she's at a point in her career. I mean, you can say this about a kid, even that she doesn't. I mean, she can be picky.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that she's probably, hopefully, not going to just jump on anything that gets offered to her. I don't. I mean, hopefully, she's got a good agent who can, navigate her through that. But I think that's a pretty intriguing thing to recreate Gretel and Hansel. So I'm totally down with it.
From a feminist perspective, I love that they put Gretel first now. So
Me too. Me too.
Well,
So
the
yes.
story is about a young girl leading, so I think that she
Yep.
deserves top billing.
awesome.
That's
And
right.
just want to let people know on the Facebook page, I posted an article, The History and Psychology of Clowns Being Scary.
Mm.
There's always a debate, especially during October, getting close to Halloween, and, people, some people, at least the people that I've been around, there's always somebody who probably will reveal something about not liking clowns, right? So
Mm-hmm.
seeing as killer clowns and, the evil that some people perceive to come from that makeup. It was actually a great, article. So in 2008, a widely reported University of Sheffield, England survey of 250 children between the ages of 4 and 16 found that most of these children disliked and even feared images of clowns. So the BBC did a report on the study, and it featured a child psychologist who broadly declared very few people like very few children like clowns. They're unfamiliar and come from a different era. They don't look funny, they just look odd. And it's a long read, but if you really want to get deep into, the transitioning from when clowns were considered to be happy, in the times like today where they're creepy. And I think in our lifetimes, we've seen serial killers who've had jobs as clowns. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
kind of up the ante on people probably being, scared of clowns. But if have either of you checked out the article? Did you see it? I posted it recently, so you might not have had an opportunity to read it, but it's definitely very informative.
I scanned it a little bit. I didn't read all of it, but I'm definitely going
Same.
to because I
Yeah.
hate clowns and don't like them. I'm not afraid of jesters, though. Have seen jesters like recreated, remade.
Yeah.
They don't scare me like clowns do. There's just something about
the clown makeup that just in the hair and the outfits that really freak me out. So, uh,
Well, both of you have kids, though. Is the notion that clowns are outdated or kids don't like them? Is that something that
I mean, I don't
either of
feel
you
like they're
kind of?
in their collective popular consciousness anymore outside of like the It movie or things like that. I mean, my oldest daughter's familiar with clowns and she's not afraid of them from what she's seen in pop culture, but definitely there's not a ton of them around. And I'd actually like to finish reading the article as well because I'd like to see if it traces my own history of like where I thought they were fine when I was a kid and became afraid of them as I got older. So it's kind of, I guess, because like you said, we are old enough to have
yeah.
known serial killers. And I told you guys about that lady that used to come to the record store that I worked at and like bang on the door like right after midnight after we'd closed, like scare the shit out of everybody. So things like that really, inform
Yeah.
my feelings.
I was scared of clowns, dolls. I didn't like the Easter Bunny. I didn't like Santa Claus. I didn't like any of it when I was a kid in person. Now, in theory, I liked the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus bringing me shit. But when my mom brought me to meet them, I hated them and I was scared. She also decided I needed to collect dolls, and every time she would go somewhere, bring me a doll, and I hated all of them. And then my kid Madeline apparently adapted the same feelings because then my mom started trying to push dolls on her, and I never said a word. She brought her this doll. It was creepy as fuck. It had like all these curly ringlets and like a dog like pulling her bow on her dress. And she's like, "Oh." And I'm like, "Look how cute this is." Because I didn't want to put my, fears on her. And the next day, I get up and go in her room, and I'm like, can't find the doll, and I find her shoved in the corner of my daughter's closet with like all the shit on top of it. So I was like, well, she's clearly got the same problems I do with dolls
Yep.
and shit. And neither one of them like clowns either. So I don't know. And this was before they watched Poltergeist or It or any of that. They when we went to It's a Small World and Disney World, they weren't fans of it either. And I think they at first were scared, but then when I start freaking the fuck out, because I don't like dolls that are animatronic at all, they kind of had a fun time fucking with me because I was freaking out about animatronic dolls in It's a Small World, but they also did not like it. My daughter, from a very young age, didn't like animatronic dolls and tried to pull one's hair out that as a gift from her grandparents, shocked the shit out of them, and it made me laugh quite. I was laughing pretty hard because she was like this cute little blonde. She looks exactly like the doll, and the doll's singing Ring Around the Rosie. And then all of a sudden, my daughter grabs her by the hair and starts shaking her and just throws her. But, she's a baby, so she can't throw her too far, and then kicks at her. And it was just like silence all around. And I was like, well, that was awkward.
Yeah.
So something in our family does not like dolls or any kind of animatronic things that move or makeup or nothing. None of it. So I don't know.
Well, for me, I've been pretty much indifferent. I've seen clowns on TV way more than I've seen them in real life. And when I did see them in real life, or if I was watching them on TV, I was more so than what the clown was doing. I was more interested in every clown's individual design that they used when they painted their faces. So and maybe that's just the artist in me, I always got sucked into that, not necessarily what they were doing. So for me, I never really had a problem with them one way or the other. I just thought that the creative aspect of how people decorate their faces says a little bit about them. You might not know what the hell that is, but everybody's personality comes out, and when they're designing their own paint, when they're a clown. So for me, that was the highlight of Santa.
Nice.
All right. Well, I'm definitely going to check that out later when I'm ready to settle in and get a good reading on.
About clowns.
All right. So now we'll get over to our main event, Egyptian curses. I don't know why I decided on this. I originally started Book of the Dead, but after reading about it, honestly, the Book of the Dead's not that scary. We will breach on it a little bit in this show, but it's not going to be like what I thought it was going to be. So I decided to change it over to curses instead, because curses are fucking scary. I mean, if you think
Yes,
about
they
it,
are.
you don't have any real control over that, so you accidentally step in on something, even if you're warned. I mean, who really believes in them? So this will be it's an interesting take on Egyptian curses specifically this week. So in ancient Egypt, curses were placed on sacred objects and possessions to stop people from disturbing them. The curse is what will happen to anyone who doesn't heed the warning. The first people to fear mummies were Arabs, who conquered Egypt in 641. The Arab writers warned people never to tamper with the mummies or their tombs because they knew Egyptians practiced magic during their funeral ceremonies, hence the Book of the Dead. Inside of a sacred tomb contained ancient writings and paintings that showed mummies could return to the living and seek revenge. The idea of curses being linked with mummies has intrigued people for centuries. So, real quick, before I keep reading this, when you think about mummy curses, what's the first thing that comes to your head, Yardley?
I was thinking about like King Tut.
Right. What about you, Moni?
I was thinking the same thing, or that stupid mummy movie.
Right. Oh, I haven't seen the newest one, Tom Cruise's one. I've heard that
not.
itself was a curse. No, I mean, I heard it sucked royally. Me too. We'll definitely discuss those, and then we're also going to discuss some other ones that I had never heard of, which were really interesting. The first published book about an Egyptian curse was published in 1699, and hundreds more followed. The most popular stories of a mummy's curse was the real-life opening of King Tutankhamun's tomb in 1923, which captured the nation. Stories about the pharaoh's curse are countless. The recently found sarcophagus in Alexandria that may or may not be the final resting place of Alexander the Great brought theories and stories about the curses back to the surface, with rumors already circulating that Alexandria's sarcophagus is cursed and could bring 2,000 years of darkness. Well, I think that's already happened, so we're good there. Curses aren't just concentrated to Egypt. Mayan, pirates, Native American, even the Romans have curses. I personally decided to narrow it down to Egyptian curses because there's always room to discuss all the other ones on another show. We definitely, I think, have enough to fill up one show. And I am, for some reason, very fascinated with Egypt just overall. So I was excited to get to finally break open that and discuss it. So here's some well-known and not so well-known true stories, as they're told, that many believe are due to an Egyptian curse. Moni?
And actually, before I dive into that, I just wanted to mention, when you asked what we thought of, I actually was thinking of, remember a month ago or so, we were talking about those people, they opened that sarcophagus and people wanted to drink the mummy juice that was inside?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think they were allowed to do that. I should follow up on that. But in the meantime, the German thief, an ancient Egyptian relic, was sent in 2007 with a note to the German embassy in Egypt, with a note from an anonymous, wow, that's redundant, with a note from an anonymous sender confessing that since its theft caused nothing but pain and suffering for him and his family. Apparently, the thief stole the relic when he was in Egypt as a souvenir and took it with him to Germany, but he suddenly started suffering from an unknown illness. He became feverish, his illness evolved to paralysis, and eventually death. The relic was sent back to the thief's stepson, who believed that there would not be rest for his family or the soul of his stepfather until it was returned to Egypt.
Now, this is an interesting thing because you're going to hear a couple of stories today that evolve into paralysis, and then death. So that's curious to me, how that happens when you're around relics or mummies or whatever. So anyway, something to think about. Yarly, you get to talk about Tut.
All right, Tutankhamun's curse. Death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king, says a warning on Tutankhamun's tomb. It was ignored by Egyptologist Lord Carnarvon and discovered and discoverer Howard Carter when they decided to open the tomb in 1922. Lord Carnarvon was the financial backer of the team, and he died 4 months after opening the tomb. What's interesting is that he died of a mosquito's bite to his cheek, and when he died, all the lights in his home went out mysteriously. His son reported back on his estate in England. His favorite dog howled and suddenly dropped dead. Even more strange, the mummy of Tutankhamun was unwrapped in 1925. It supposedly was found to have a wound on the left cheek in the exact position as the insect bite on Carnarvon that led to his death. Now, one of the things about all of these curses, as we go through them, a lot of these tales, of course, they go down through, different generations, and people pass these things on.
Yes.
And you made mention that, earlier, a lot of people, here in the West, a lot of people just don't really believe on it. And I think part of that is just culturally, those tales haven't, been passed down like that, over here. So do you believe that, just the fact of the matter that something lives if you believe in it, and if you don't, it pretty much dies, out of existence. So do you think if this civilization is around for another 1,000 years, you think that, curses and things like that will still be something that'll be told, or like everything else over time, it kind of falls to the wayside as technology in our minds kind of sometimes, kind of expand away from, these type of superstitions?
That's a great question. I think over time, people are going to stop believing in all this stuff. I honestly do. I hope. I think as we get evolve, and I think science will kind of take place, a lot more things are going to be explained. I think a lot more things that are surprisingly almost like paranormal will be revealed as science, but also other things are going to be, of course, put away. And I also think you hit on something interesting. It is kind of what you believe. When you read something, what do you believe? And you can almost, I think it's called chaos magic, create your own just surroundings, everything that happens to you, by believing in something. So that's my personal belief. I think sometimes things are circumstances, and I think sometimes if you believe it enough, it's going to happen to you.
I think that in our culture, unfortunately, our oral tradition will instead become a Reddit or creepypasta tradition, or maybe a podcast tradition, and we'll be a part of that. But still, it's going to be a little bit different as far as what we'll believe. That being said, as far as if the curses exist, it kind of like what Yardley touched upon. If you believe it, then basically it does exist. It's kind of like, a placebo or giving someone the real drug. If someone believes they're better, then they'll get better, at least to some extent. So if someone believes they are cursed, then they are cursed. And quite frankly, I'm looking at the update on this mummy juice story, and they're joking around about, we've opened it, and thank God the world has not fallen into darkness. And I stand before you, and I am fine. And like Christy said, are we fine? Are we, though? How will we know? And it might not literally be darkness, Well,
and that's one of the things that makes American Gods good. It's the whole fight of the old gods trying to stay relevant so that they can still exist. So there's a battle, of course, of technology versus, the spiritual.
Such a good show. Such a good show.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of those battles that kind of, goes along with what we're talking about now, about how belief keeps these things around. And I agree with both of you. I just think over time, I just think that's just kind of the natural course of things like that getting pushed more to the wayside. And it's not going to go kicking and screaming. It will go kicking and screaming because there's always going to be some people, who try to hold on to shit. I personally hope that things, traditions or certain beliefs, I kind of do think that in some way, shape, or another, that they do continue to be around, because everything, I just think that there's probably something, to what certain people believe. I just don't think that the extraordinary things are necessarily things that I would believe in, but I do think that there are tenets of different people's belief systems that are things that can be applicable to everyone's lives to make it better.
Sometimes I have really weird thoughts about things like I believe in science, and I believe like things like climate change are both real and scientifically provable and exist. However, how do we know that it isn't because of a curse that the science that made this phenomena start to happen came about? How do we know that the Big Bang or whatever it was that first created, the universe didn't start with something supernatural and then become scientific? I don't know. I don't know what I believe. I'm not super spiritual, but how can you look around and say that everything is just a matter of one thing or the other? That's a very narrow-minded approach that I just don't choose to have in life.
I agree. I think that's kind of the way we all are, the three of us. We have a very healthy balance of suspended belief and also being somewhat, I mean, I'm probably at the least end of that. But I think the fun part about it is it's healthy to be scared. It's healthy. I'm not celebrating that these people died. I don't think that that's what I mean, but it's also kind of a fun, healthy way to get scared, far removed from us. Hopefully I don't get like a severed hand in the mail, but I'm about to read in a little bit. But I mean, it's, that's just how it is. It's another fun way to look at the universe and reasonings behind things that are not explained. Could it have been an insect bite? And the circumstances were this guy's who discovered this mummy died of an insect bite on the cheek, and then just so happened that the mummy that he discovered had the same bite. In 1925, what would you think? I think I would think it was a fucking curse. Yeah. Now in 2018, do we really think that? It's an interesting thing to think about, and it's creepy to talk about, but in our minds, we jump to, it's coincidence. What is it? And that's what this show's about. Is it a coincidence or is it not? I mean, we end these things with it, leaving it up to the listener. What do you believe? Some people believe there's curses out there. Native Americans most definitely do. I'm best friends with one, and they still to this day believe in curses. And so it's just what you follow and what you believe in. I mean, that's my personal opinion.
Isn't the well already poisoned to a certain extent? Because even if you're going into this tomb and you're messing with things, if you already knew about the concept of a curse, or if there's, people are talking about curses that were been passed down through generations, going in, you already have, in your mind, the specter of that. So right. when something happens, I think people will naturally gravitate to saying it has something to do with that. I think it's one of our earlier episodes, Moni, I can't remember the name of the house, but I think you went to the house and you went to each room and something happened.
The Whaley house, maybe?
Yeah, the Whaley house. And then I had asked you, I was like, hey, do you think the fact that you knew that all of these things were happening, did that kind of influence
Absolutely.
What you experienced in there? So I think that has a lot to do with it as well, is that, in your subconscious, you're already psyching yourself out. And then when something like that happens, when maybe you feel like you're already wrong for doing,
right.
You know what I mean? It kind of.
I think the interesting part about the curses here, and it took me reading about it because I didn't know about any of it. Because I randomly hit on this subject, was when they opened up Tutankhamun's tomb, they did not know what it said. Like, they couldn't speak that language. It took weeks to get that interpreted, or months, to know what that warning was. And so already people were dying. So I can imagine, like, walking through that door and discovering, I mean, the story that I read is amazing. I actually watched a YouTube documentary on it. These people, he was getting his funding cut off, and they allowed him one more. He had been digging for 5 years looking for this tomb, and he had a theory that he was not going to be as open. His tomb wasn't going to be, because he died very young. It was unexpected, and he didn't have his actual tomb prepared. he ended up taking somebody else's tomb that was not well known. And all these other grand kings that had lived and were like the greatest kings ever, their tombs had been looted already. Their mummies were gone. Everything was taken. His wasn't, because it wasn't so flamboyant. And so that's how they ended up finding it in 12 or whatever it was. But it was in 1922. It's just interesting that they went in, they didn't know what that said, and then they sent it to their scientist, and the scientist interpreted it, and that was how they found out what it said. And by then, things had already started to happen. And so I can imagine back then they were probably thinking, oh shit, all this shit's happening, people are dropping dead. Not a lot. I mean, when you look at it, I think there was probably 8 people that out of the 40 that went into the tomb that died quickly. So it's not like all of them died, but enough, I think, to get this started, you know? So I thought that was kind of an interesting tidbit that they had no idea what that said until later. But anyway, speaking of, while thankfully no one died, I think this one deserves its place in this list. Sir Bruce Ingham was a friend of Howard Carter, so it was no surprise that he received gifts from his friend. However, this gift was kind of creepy. This gift's awesome. I love it. It was a severed, mummified hand wearing a bracelet, which was inscribed with the words, Cursed be he who moves my body. A few days later, Ingram's house was burned to the ground, and after rebuilding the house, it was hit with the flood, destroying it again.
I mean, he didn't move the body, he just moved one hand. Jesus.
And he didn't even move the hand. He just got it in the mail. I mean, come on, y'all. Be nice. Be nice.
I do want to point out in advance of the one I'm about to read, because I can hear my husband's voice in my head. And actually, it was something my dad used to talk about when I was a little girl. Yes, curse could exist. It's not outside of my realm of possibilities. It could be a combination of curse and science. But I do want to mention that when you open up a tomb and you're in a place you've never been in the whole wide world, and by the way, Christy mentioned she gets sick when she goes on airplanes a lot of the time. A lot of people do. I'm probably going to get con crud. That's what we call being at a Comic-Con and getting sick afterward. I mean, the thing is, you open up a tomb, there could be bacteria, there could be mold, there could be all kinds of dust that is dangerous or that you've never breathed in before. A lot of times on these digs, you're somewhere where you haven't ever been before. So just keep that all in mind. Grain of salt is all I'm saying. But still, victims of Tutankhamun. A wealthy American named George J. Gould visited the Tutankhamun tomb a year after its discovery, but he fell sick as soon as he left the tomb, never recovered, and died of pneumonia later. Sir Archibald Reed, on the other hand, wasn't even on the expedition. He was a radiologist and was just given the mummy of King Tut to x-ray. He got sick after receiving the mummy and died less than a week later.
So I saw a picture of this poor guy, Archibald, x-raying the mummy. He's like so excited. He's putting the mummy through the machine, and then because this wasn't that long ago, it was like in the late 70s, I think. And he died a week later.
That's crazy.
Poor guy, seriously. All right, Yardley, here you are with the Book of the Dead.
All right. Aaron Ember, an American Egyptologist, died in his house when it burned down just after hosting a lavish dinner party. While he and his family could have left safely, he went back to save documents he was working on titled the Egyptian Book of the Dead. The Book of the Dead is the modern name given to the collection of texts the ancient Egyptians wrote to help the dead and guide them through the Tuat, the underworld. And I have heard Tuat so many times. I've been playing Assassin's Creed Origins.
Oh, I've heard. Is it good? Is it good?
Yeah, it's great. But every time you assassinate like a big time person, you hit them with a feather and send them to the Tuat. Now I'm playing Assassin's Creed what is it, Odyssey now, but
Boom.
I've heard that millions of hours of that. But this collection consists of formulas, hymns, incantations, magical words, and prayers. The Book of the Dead is not a work from a single period of ancient Egypt, but it's a compilation of writings from throughout Egypt's history. Carl Richard Leppius was the first man to translate and complete manuscript of the Book of the Dead in modern times in 1846. He established the numbering system used to distinguish the chapters or spells today. Carl Leppius encouraged other scholars to collect the known variations of all the spells in one book. Edward Neville undertook his task and completed a 3-volume collection of 186 spells. The collection included the significant variations of each spell and his commentary. All of these spells are the books of dead men.
So
Nice.
yeah, so the Book of the Dead, apparently a lot of mummies came with either statues with spells inside, incantations, magical words or prayers inside them or underneath them in their sarcophagus. So when these looters came and started looting all these mummies, they were finding these scrolls, and they became the Book of the Dead, the Book of His Dead, the Book of the Dead People. So that's basically like that one scroll to them was a book, and then they took as many as they could find and turned them into an actual book. So it was interesting because they went through and chose the spell and incantations that they wanted when they died. So they had it all done like a will, and it was all written out for them when they died. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Anyway, succumbing to the curse. Terrified of the curse that has taken lives of several of his friends and colleagues, archaeologist Hugh Evelyn White took his own life by committing suicide at home. Conflicting reports stated that he left a note saying, "I have succumbed to a curse which forces me to disappear." Some say it was written in his own blood.
Ooh la la. The mummy's coffin that killed 1,500 people. This one is kind of tricky, as many claim it's not really true, but it's an interesting story nonetheless. It started out as a ghost story. Sounds were heard coming from a mummy's wooden coffin at night in one of the British museums. But when one of the museum guards died mysteriously, they decided to ship the coffin off to the U.S. to get rid of it. Well, that's where all the crap goes, apparently.
Right?
The Titanic carried on board 2,200 passengers, as well as 40 tons of potatoes, 35,000 eggs, 12,000 bottles. I feel like this is like 70,000 sacks of coffee on the walls, 12,000 bottles of mineral water. Anyway, but in another item of the cargo, a female Egyptian mummy, dubbed the Unlucky Mummy, was, I guess, in the cargo. Lord Canterville sold the Unlucky Mummy to an American, which began its journey from England to New York. The female mummy had been embellished with the usual amulets and artifacts. One of the artifacts was an amulet with a figure of Osiris and an inscription which said, "Awake from the swoon in which you sleep, and a glance of your eyes will triumph over everything that is done against you." Ooh, chilling. The inscription had been placed beneath her head. The question has since been asked, was this a hint that the remains of the prophetess enjoyed a special protection? This priceless mummy was encased in a wooden crate. Due to its great value, it had not been placed in the hold of the Titanic, but behind the Titanic's command bridge. Now here's something odd. Quite a number of scientists who handled mummies are reported to have shown clear signs of mental derangement. Well, they're scientists. Was this a result of some curse attending the mummies? In particular, one question that has since been asked since the Titanic went down is this: did Captain Smith also look into the mummy's fatal, radiant eyes? Could he also have been a victim of a curse? Or just...
Sorry, Yardley? Fun, creepy things for Halloween. All right, keep going.
All right, well, let's talk about Osiris doing what he does best. Egyptologist Walter Bryan Emery found a small statue of Osiris, the god of death, in Saqqara in 1971. He brought it back to the Diggs office, but after leaving it to go to the bathroom, Emery's assistant heard a commotion inside, and he found Emery in a paralyzed state. Emery died the following day after being diagnosed with paralysis in the right side of his whole body, or as most modern people say, he had a stroke.
Yeah, he did.
Let's stop it. But,
now, here's the interesting part. So I read and looked up and actually found there was an Egyptian paper that published a story about his death. And they backed this claim, and I thought it was just really interesting. This isn't made up. It actually happened. He was very loved in Egypt, and they mourned his death and basically think the same thing, that he died from a cursed statue. Wow. I thought that was an interesting thing, because I was like, shut up. But no, really, they really think that. All right. A yearly visit from death. This one affected famed Egyptian explorer and Egyptologist Zahi, I'm sorry if I butcher this, Hawass. Anyway, when he was transporting artifacts from a site called Qom Abdubilio one day, his aunt died. A year later, on the same day, his uncle passed away. The following year, it was his cousin's death, but then it stopped. Hawass still does not believe in the existence of the curse.
I'm glad I'm not the only one you gave all the hard words to. Okay, so turning statue. In late 2013, a Manchester museum was haunted with an Egyptian statue that rotated 180 degrees every 3 days, seemingly on its own. Wow. The statue was in a glass case and untouched from everyone except from the curator, who kept turning it back. The museum's curator claimed the ancient Egyptians believed that if a mummy was destroyed, then the statue could be used as an alternative vessel for the spirit. A time-lapse video has been sped up to clearly show the statue moving without being touched. Holy shit, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I watched it. It is interesting. They think they've cracked the code, but they literally think it's condensation. I'm not sure that condensation...
That is a lot of condensation.
I mean, seriously. And then they don't even show that there's any condensation. So I'm kind of
I'll tell you what else. I run an archive. Like, that's part of my job, is to run a historical archive. And if you're letting that much condensation get on an artifact that is of that much value, you're stupid and need to spend the money to get a better encasement for that. So, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and they haven't just so apparently, this is Manchester. All right, well, Manchester, Egypt, y'all need to get your shit together, because my mother-in-law went to Egypt and went to the pyramids and then went to this quote-unquote museum, and it was the shoddiest thing you've ever seen. It was like there wasn't even a door, and sand was blowing in, and they're all walking through. People could touch everything. It was ridiculous. She's like, I cannot believe. I mean, these are like artifacts, like mummified or tomb artifacts just hanging on a shelf, and everybody's just walking by them. And she was like, I cannot believe this is a museum. It was shocking to her. So
that is very sad, but I will defend it just a little bit and put out there that museums fail. They're worse than restaurants. They fail about 80% of the time. Mm-hmm. It's not a lucrative business model, and they're also extremely expensive to keep the temperatures correct, to keep the lighting correct, to have everything exactly how it's supposed to be in order to preserve whatever artifacts you have. So that's really sad, but that sounds hopefully more like a funding issue. Not that that's good, over whoever just slapped that museum together didn't give a shit, but maybe it's a little bit of all of the above.
It was like the National Museum of Egypt. I mean, it was like a legit, get a door first. Yeah. A door would be good.
A curtain, maybe, perhaps.
Yeah, hey, how about something that blocks
Let's donate
the
a curtain to them.
But anyway, yeah, hey, our first Patreon goal: donate door
Wait, you had one
to
more.
Egyptian
James
Museum.
Henry breasted.
Oh yeah, we're not done. Yeah, no, I just when you were talking about this, it
I'm sorry. I thought you were skipping Yardley. I was standing up for the guy.
Not at all. Yardley, go. Unless you have something to say about this rotating statue.
No, I want to actually get into James Henry breasted, which that's a killer. That's a killer name. So,
great name, right?
Breasted, another famous Egyptologist of the day, was working with Carter when the tomb was opened. Shortly thereafter, he allegedly returned home to find that his pet canary had been eaten by a cobra, and the cobra
Jesus.
was still occupying the cage.
Oh,
so, so
get
since the
out.
cobra is a symbol of the Egyptian monarchy and a motif that kings wore on their headdresses to represent protection, this was a rather ominous sign.
Yeah.
So Breasted himself didn't die until 1935, although his death did occur immediately after a trip to Europe.
Egypt.
Oh, yep. To Egypt. No, because I
Don't
remember
scare people going to Europe.
well, it's funny because I think my head was still with the Manchester Museum from the last one. But yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff is super circumstantial stuff, though. I mean, I don't know. I guess I guess the cobra thing, I could see somebody saying, "Well, man, it was eaten by a cobra," and like it's like a protection thing or whatever. But I don't know how I would necessarily connect that to a curse. So.
Well, it depends on how common cobras are in that area. But I do have to say, PSA: if a cobra's around, I've heard somewhere they can jump when they strike 6 feet. So curse, no curse, if there's a cobra involved, GTFO. Also, I want to say the 12-year-old boy in me just is dying to say that James Henry Breasted, this breasted man, is a real clap back to our first story about a breasted man with a fake penis.
Yes,
so there you go.
Yes. Hey, my question is,
how
did the cobra get in the fucking cage? That's what I want to know.
So that shit jumped 6 feet and probably crawled up the rest of the way? Slithered, I guess? Yeah.
In the cage?
How big are the slats in a cage? I mean,
I don't know.
if you were a snake, you could probably slither right on in there. Or it's a curse. Either way.
I don't know if it's a big. I mean, how big is a cobra though? Because I don't think a canary cage is that big for a cobra to get through. But I guess if it was small.
Well, it's either that or a curse. These are your options. Or maybe someone left the cage open. We don't know.
I have no idea what.
It was probably the butler with the candlestick and
with the cobra in the cage.
Yes. New Clue edition. It's the cobra with the cage.
Could not pay me enough to mess with the cobra, though.
Hell no. No. Yeah, these are all just in fun. We're just here having fun. This is supposed to be fun, scary things that we can tell stories about for Halloween. Something a little off the cuff. Doesn't have to be slasher or ghosts. It can be scary Egyptian curses too, We got the rest of the month to really explore some shit. So let's get in it. I think Yardley's got something good queued up. But before we talk about it, I just want to announce, like you heard at the beginning of the show. No, y'all haven't heard. I did the announcement pre-recorded, Yardley and Munley. We got a Patreon. Moni. We got a Patreon. Excited about doing this. We're going to offer some really fun stuff. A lot of extra content. If you feel like when our show ends, you just didn't get enough, this is the perfect place for you. And we already have some Patreons. So I'd like to shout out 2 people. Alicia Lyon, God bless you. You were our first one.
Yay!
You're our hero. Thank you. You made my day because doing this is kind of weird. You're really putting yourself out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do the show and we enjoy it. But for some reason, when I launched this, it kind of freaked me out a little bit. So I'm thinking, nobody wants to hear about us. And then not an hour after we announced it, there she was. So thank you, Alicia. I appreciate you, your vote of confidence in us.
You rock.
And Steve, okay. Chaput.
Mm-hmm.
Chaput.
That's our Steve.
Bless your heart, Steve. I love you. And I love your last name. That is amazing. Chaput. I love Chaput. Sounds amazing. Anyway, Moni, do you have some upcoming announcements that you'd like to talk about for Patreon?
Yeah, I wanted to tease some bonus content. As you know, Christy had been looking into Shudder. She had been watching some movies on Shudder, and I had the good fortune of interfacing with some of the Shudder representatives at the New York Comic Con. And in case you don't know, Shudder is a platform, basically a streaming service just for horror movies, some original content, some indie films. And I actually just watched Mayhem. Christy, did you watch Mayhem yet? I couldn't remember if that was one you mentioned last week.
I don't remember.
That's the one with Glenn from Walking Dead, Stephen Yeun.
No, but I want to watch
Okay.
it. It's one where something goes crazy in the office.
So basically, Stephen Yeun works in a corporation, and he gets screwed and set up. And at the same time that happens, a virus breaks out in the building, and they have to be quarantined while medicine is pumped through the air ducts so that they can get over the virus. But the virus causes you to be your id. So you just have no impulse control. People are fucking. People are obviously fighting and killing each other, and craziness ensues. So it's a nice little revenge. It also has a young woman by the name of Samara Weaving, who is another Australian, because she reminds me very much of Margot Robbie. And actually, they were both born in Australia, about 2 years apart, so they could definitely play sisters in a movie. But at any rate, she's like scorched your face off hot, and her character in this movie is like super badass. Like even before she gets the virus, she's just comes in swinging and is just taking no shit from anybody. And you'll recognize her from some other projects. She was in The Babysitter on Netflix, but super fun movie. I will give you more information if you are one of our Patreon subscribers, but it is an original to Shudder, so that's all the information. It's kind of along the lines of the Belko Experiment. If anybody has seen that movie, it's kind of in that vein. Another thing that I wanted to tease and also just mention, whether you subscribe or not, because it's something that horror fans should know about. When I was at New York Comic Con, I got a little invitation from Entertainment Weekly in collaboration with Netflix for a special screening of the upcoming Haunting at Hill House. Of course, based off the Shirley Jackson novel, very old book, not having anything to do with the 1999 film of the same name. But so first of all, kudos to Entertainment Weekly for throwing the soiree, because the hotel that they had it in, oh my God, and they had like not steam machines, you know what I mean, like where the smoke or whatever is coming off.
Smoke machines, yeah.
There you go. And just the atmosphere they set, open bar. It was just an amazing, amazing hotel that they had it at. It was a little bit of a jaunt from the con, but it was worth it. But that show drops this coming Friday. And without giving any more away, because I'm going to have this as bonus content, but be on your couch this coming Friday. Make it a Netflix and chill, or as they're branding it for this month, Netflix and chiller night, because holy shit. So that's all I'm going to say
about
the
gosh,
Haunting
I'm so
of Hill House.
excited.
Yeah, dude.
Real quick, I want to go over just our Patreon tiers. We have 4. They're super simple. We got Child's Play, which is only $3 a month. You can basically get all our movie reviews, mine, Moni, Yardley's, and y'all, we watch a lot of fucking movies, so that is a lot of content right there coming at you for free every week. And then we've got the $5 one, which is the Atacama Skeleton is an Alien. First of all, you know this, I know this. We don't need to argue about it anymore. Thank you. Yes, can you tell who set these up? When you chip in $5 a month, you get the benefits of Tier 1, as well as all interviews, Moni's library, paranormal footage. Did I say library? That's Jay.
Yes, you did, as do many people.
Jay says library, so I say library, my son. Paranormal footage, and all our crazy shenanigan videos of things we have planned, like ghost hunts, tours, and excursions. By the way, Yardley, have you checked your Twitter? Because somebody challenged you on you and I's Twitter. Anyway, not only will you hear about it on the show, but you will actually see it with your own eyes, only for $5. That's pretty good. $10 a month is the Cropsy Boogeyman Safety Patrol. Now, come on. Who doesn't love to be on a patrol? You guys have what it takes to make sure the streets are kept safe, and you will be rewarded for it. For $10, you will get all Tier 1 and 2 benefits, as well as a kick-ass large glass beer mug with the Creepin' It Real logo, thanks to Moni. Woo-hoo. Why be sober when fighting forces of evil? And lastly is the Drunk Horror Story liver donators. Now, this is not just mine and Moni's thing. Yardley needs to get in this pot as well. Let's face it, you guys are the real horrors, or the real heroes. Horrors. Drunk Horror Story.
You're the
real horrors.
Why we can't have nice things.
Yeah. Drunk Horror Story is a liver disaster waiting to happen, so this $25 will be your small contribution for when our livers quit us. And let's face it, it's inevitable. God damn, I can never say that word.
It's a vitamin of vitamin.
I can never say that word. With this fantabulous tier, you will get all of Tier 1 through 3 rewards, as well as the most popular show we've ever had. Drunk Horror Story coming to you every week. You will also have your choice between a copper wine tumbler or a glass beer mug with your logo on it. Congrats, you're a fucking baller. All right, y'all. By the way, you have to type us in because Patreon has decided for some reason we're too fucking hardcore for the children's. And so they've marked us as adult content, which, shocker. I'm arguing it right now, but I'm not sure if I'm going to win. I've got some pretty good evidence.
We opened the show talking about dicks, girl. I don't know.
Oh, honey. No. So I wrote them, and I was like, you think that we have adult content? There is a show on there called The Cum Brothers.
Oh.
It is not good. And it's public. So let me just tell you, if you think that's not adult content. So what happens if you're adult content, you can't search us on Patreon. So you have to actually type our shit in or find us on our social media. Which we... Cool. I know, it's not cool. That's why I'm fighting it, because I'm like, wait a minute, that's not cool. But I still believe in the program. I'm still here. It's just, so if you go to patreon.com, it's just /Creepin' It Real. That's all you have to do. Just type us in, and you'll find us. And then they're going to ask you if you're 18 or older. I mean, we must really be fucking badass if that's what we have to go through.
That's got to be what it is. But can I just speak for myself and say that I am not an adult, either in content or in any other manner of speaking. So why are they lumping me into adult content? Boo hiss.
I am here for anything that I'm not supposed to watch. So by all means, join up. Yes.
Speak easy. Deliver that content.
If it's taboo, I shouldn't have it. Therefore, I want it. Therefore, you guys come find us. I'm super excited about this.
Yeah, you know you
want
to.
We are putting ourselves out there. Our faces, everything's going to be ugly and pretty and nasty and drunk all at the same time. And if we can meet our first goal, me and Moni are going to have the most ultimate drunk horror story while we're in San Jose, California this November that your balls have never seen before. It's going to be the greatest, most epic drunk horror story ever. And it's going to be video. So.
All right. Video or it didn't happen. So.
Get us to that goal and you will witness some ridiculous embarrassment things.
And we are going to the Winchester for that endeavor. We're getting a tour that's already been established, so you're going to want to know about that.
I see your face, Moni. You look cute. Aw, she turned it off. Why'd you rat on her? I wanted to see her cute face.
Damn it.
Anyway, so that's our Patreon breakdown. And Yardley, what have you got? Looks like, let me just tell you before you announce this, this has been on my list to rewatch.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Yes.
And I was waiting. I was
Dying.
waiting for Halloween, and now you announced it. I was like, yes.
You have made my life.
What you got, Yardley?
Yes.
What you got?
Well, next week we're going to do a review of 1987's Hellraiser, written and directed by Clive Barker. The synopsis for the film: it's a sexual deviant, Frank, played by Sean Chapman, inadvertently opens a portal to hell when he tinkers with a box he bought while abroad. The act unleashes gruesome beings called Cenobites who tear Frank's body apart. When Frank's brother, played by Andrew Robinson, and his wife, wife Julia, played by Claire Higgins, when they move into Frank's old house, they accidentally bring what is left of Frank back to life. Frank then convinces Julia, his one-time lover, to lure a man back to the house so he can use their blood to reconstruct himself. Now, this is on Netflix. So, we know a lot of people are down with Netflix, and it's probably, if you listen to this podcast, it's probably on your old DVD shelf. So we're going to do a review of that. And I haven't actually watched it since probably I saw it when I was a teenager, and I actually own the Blu-ray, but I haven't watched it since a teenager. Like, one of the reasons why I bought not the Blu-ray, the DVD. One of the reasons why I bought the DVD is I was like, at the time when it came out on DVD, I was like, man, I haven't seen this since I was a teenager. And it's literally still in the plastic, still on my shelf,
Nice.
all of those years later. So I'm going to open that buddy up and I'm going to watch it. And I look forward to it because I do remember, if not for anything else, when I watched that movie, it made me cringe because of the hooks and, all of that crazy stuff. So it'll be
I don't
kind
like
of
that
great.
shit.
Yeah, it'll be good to kind of take a look at it and see if it's dated. I wonder if it still, holds up today. So I'm really excited about that, and it'll be like watching it for the first time.
Moni, have you seen this movie before?
I have seen this movie many times.
Oh, okay.
I would like us all to disregard any ones that come after this one. If you have a chance, it is a short story, I believe, in another collection of Clive Barker. I could be making that up. It could be its own story. But either way, obviously it was written originally by Clive Barker as a book, and it's very good as well. So I am all about this. And I actually just want to say now, just to kind of get everybody excited for this whole month of Rocktober, that I want to do the original Halloween. And for those of the three of us who get a chance, I want to see the new Halloween. So next week is Yardley's week. We'll be doing Hellraiser. But in 2 weeks, I'm going to go find a way to see the new Halloween movie and disregard everything in between. That's what I've heard. You have to watch the very first one ever and then watch the new one and disregard anything in between. And that's my plan for 2 weeks from now.
Oh, that's what's up. I'm definitely down to try to watch Halloween and
Nice.
go see it. Why not?
Y'all are talking about reviews, and I sometimes want to give us a break from them. But isn't American Horror Story coming out soon with the new one which is
Yes, yeah.
Now my first instinct was to do that. Now I got to rethink my shit for this week.
Well, there's also going to be the new Hulu show. Now I can't remember, but it's a new horror show, but it's only once a month. Sabrina, the spooky version of Sabrina, is going to be coming out on Netflix. There's a bunch of stuff coming out for October.
All right. I still want to do something scary too. Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah.
I hear it.
I am getting the results from the library's paranormal experience. I can't really talk about it until after the 20th when we have our own program because I don't want to spoil it for those who would be there. But I've heard there are some extremely good EVPs that were captured that were responding to the things that we said that day. So I am looking so forward to sharing that with you guys the last week of October.
Awesome. Well, with that, Moni, you want to give us your closing credentials?
Sure, credentials. It just makes me sound so official.
Yes.
I am at Rebel Moni on Twitter. I have actually been tweeting quite a bit, so catch me over there. And I am Moni Bear on Instagram.
Yardley?
All right, you can find me on Twitter at militant_marker.
All right then, guys. Well, I just want to say, so apparently this last month has been crazy. Our listeners have jumped over like almost 100%. So thank you guys. I hope you enjoy it. Yeah, I mean, I was shocked, and I really appreciate it, and I hope you all enjoy this. You can find me at Creepin' Christy on Instagram and at Creepin_it on Twitter. I would love it if y'all would come say hi to me. I'm trying to figure out who all y'all are. So come say hi. Otherwise,